Right now, you are wearing something. Maybe it is a shirt, maybe it is shoes, maybe it is just a thin layer of fabric you barely think about. You put it on this morning without a second thought. But that single act, that automatic, forgettable thing you did before breakfast, is one of the strangest behaviors in the entire animal kingdom. No other species does it. Not chimpanzees, not elephants, not the animals with far less fur than you. Only humans wrap themselves in material and call it necessary. So the question is not just when did this start? The real question is why? And the answer is far stranger than you have ever been told. You probably learned at some point that early humans started wearing clothes to stay warm. Simple, logical, almost too obvious to question, but that explanation has a problem. A significant one. Humans were walking the earth for hundreds of thousands of years before clothing appeared in any form. During ice ages, through brutal winters, across environments that would kill you in hours, and they survived all of it without a single stitch. So warmth alone cannot be the answer. Something else came first. To understand what really happened, you need to go back much further than clothes. You need to go back to the moment humans lost their fur. Your ancestors were covered in hair. Thick, protective, useful hair. Just like every other primate alive today. But somewhere between 3 and 2 million years ago, something changed. The dense body hair began to thin. Generation by generation, humans became the naked ape. And for a long time, scientists could not agree on why. It was one of paleoanthropology's most stubborn mysteries. Then researcher Mark Pagel and his colleague Walter Bodmer proposed something that reframed the entire debate. They argued that losing body hair was not a vulnerability. It was a weapon. As humans began running longer distances to hunt, the ones who could cool down faster had a survival edge. Dense fur traps heat. Bare skin, covered in sweat glands, radiates it. The humans who shed their hair could chase prey to exhaustion in the midday heat while other animals overheated and collapsed. Nakedness was not a disadvantage, it was an upgrade. But that upgrade came with a cost. Without fur, skin is exposed. To the sun, to parasites, to infection. And this is where the story starts to get genuinely strange. Scientists Nina Jablonski and George Chaplin spent years studying the relationship between human skin and ultraviolet radiation. What they found changed the way researchers think about why we look the way we do. Dark skin, they argued, evolved as a biological shield. As body hair thinned, melanin increased in populations living near the equator. It was protection from UV radiation that would otherwise destroy the folate in the bloodstream, a nutrient absolutely critical to fetal development. Lose your fur, gain pigment. The body always finds a way. But skin pigment cannot solve every problem. And one problem that bare skin created was a new kind of vulnerability that most people never consider. Parasites. When you have thick body hair, lice and other parasites have an easy place to live and breed. When you lose that hair, most of those parasites lose their habitat. Human body lice, however, adapted. And here is where clothing enters the story, because the body louse is different from the head louse in one specific way. It does not live on your skin, it lives in fabric, it lives in clothing. Researcher Mark Stoneking at the Max Planck Institute used genetic analysis of lice to work backward through time. By studying the mutation rate of body lice DNA, his team estimated when body lice first diverged from head lice, which is, effectively, the moment humans began wearing clothing regularly enough for a new louse subspecies to evolve to live in it. Their estimate was remarkable. Clothing, in a regular habitual sense, appears to have begun somewhere between 170,000 and 83,000 years ago. Not a million years ago, not even 200,000. Relatively recent in the deep timeline of human existence. So humans spent a long stretch of their naked existence without clothes at all. And when clothing finally arrived, the first driver was not cold. The evidence suggests it may have been something closer to social behavior. Think about what early clothing actually was: animal hide, plant fiber, bark. These are not materials that appeared in abundance in warm equatorial climates. They appeared in environments where early humans were moving, migrating, expanding outward from Africa into the cold, unpredictable terrain of Europe and Central Asia. Clothing followed migration. It did not precede it. And that changes everything about how you understand the story. But there is another layer that almost never gets mentioned, one that researchers like Francesco De Rico, who has spent decades studying the archaeology of early human cognition, finds deeply significant. The oldest known evidence of deliberate ornamentation, of pierced shells worn as beads, of ochre-stained objects, of symbolic markings, appears in Africa between 100,000 and 75,000 years ago, right around the same time as clothing, right at the moment when the human brain was beginning to do something new. It was beginning to think about how it appeared to others. This is the part that should stop you, because it means that clothing was never purely functional. From nearly the very beginning, it was also about identity, status, group membership. Who you are not. The moment a human draped something over their body, they were making a statement. Even if no one had invented language complex enough yet to articulate what that statement was, anthropologist Daniel Miller has written extensively on how material objects, including clothing, function as an extension of identity across virtually every culture ever studied. There is not a single human civilization on record that did not develop some form of body adornment, not one. It crosses every continent, every climate, every era. That kind of universal behavior does not emerge from coincidence. It emerges from something wired deep in the human social brain. And your brain is still running that same program right now. Every morning when you stand in front of your wardrobe, you are doing something your ancestors did at the edge of a savanna with a strip of animal hide. You are constructing a version of yourself to present to the world. You are deciding what your outer layer communicates about your inner life. You are negotiating between who you are and who you want to be seen as. That tension between protection and presentation, between the practical and the symbolic, has never gone away. It simply evolved alongside everything else. What began as bare skin needing coverage became a system of signals so complex that entire industries exist to decode and exploit it. Fashion, uniforms, dress codes, luxury brands, the very concept of being overdressed or underdressed, all of it traces back to that first moment when a human decided that what covered their body meant something. There is one more piece to this that ties everything together. When researchers study isolated communities or historically uncontacted peoples, something consistent appears. Even in climates where temperature poses no threat, people wear something: a bead, a marking, a woven band. The absence of clothing is almost never the default, which suggests that the original question, the one everyone assumes they know the answer to, is completely backwards. You do not wear clothes because you need to stay warm. You wear clothes because you are human, and being human means you have never been comfortable with the idea of being seen as nothing more than a body. You have always needed your surface to mean something, that ordinary thing you put on this morning without thinking twice. It is not just fabric. It is the latest expression of a 100,000-year-old need to tell the world who you are before you say a single word. And now, standing there in whatever you are wearing right now, you might look down and think about it just a little differently.